Hey guys, so today I'm going to be making this delicious chocolate mousse pie, and I actually got the recipe off of the Martha Stewart website, and I have been making this pie for the past maybe like 4 years, and it has been such a hit, and I decided to finally make a video. The steps are a little complex, but hopefully you're able to follow along and make this delicious pie. Okay, so to make this delicious chocolate mousse pie, you're going to need 1 stick of melted butter. So I haven't melted it yet because I don't want it to start to get separated between the fatty part and the watery part. So I'm going to melt it right when I'm ready. And then you're going to need 8 sheets of phuyllo dough or phuyllo dough. So once you open these, you're going to have to cover them. So just be ready. When you're going to make the crust, keep it packed, keep it closed, keep it covered. This is the phuyllo dough. And then you're going to need 2 to 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. So just regular sugar. And you're going to need 3 1/2 ounces of semisweet chocolate. So the chocolate that I use is the Ghirardelli, but you can use any baking chocolate. And you're gonna need the semi-sweet. This whole packet comes with 12 ounces, so it's more than enough. I actually still have one left over from the last time I made this pie. And that's it for the crust. So pretty simple, 4 ingredients. The phuyllo dough or phuyllo dough is hard to find. I had to go to 3 different stores. Some stores don't carry it. Some stores just carry like the little tiny cups of the pre-baked version. This is the phuyllo dough, and I got the Athens brand, and it comes with 2 closed packages, and it's a total of 16 ounces. So for the filling, you're going to need 4 large eggs, and actually you're just going to need the yolks. So just be prepared to separate the egg. You're going to need 1/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, which you already have that from the Crust Ingredients. And then you're going to need 1 teaspoon of salt. So just a little salt just to balance all the flavors out. You're going to need 3.5 ounces of bittersweet. So the crust requires semi-sweet, but the filling requires bittersweet. So I just get the 60% cocoa from Ghirardelli. And you're also going to need 2 cups of heavy cream. So that's this. And then 2 tablespoons of confectioner's sugar, which is really just powdered sugar. So I'll grab those tablespoons when I'm ready. And I have all the little ingredients on here. And then the last thing you're going to need is just additional chocolate for shaving it on top once you're done. So I usually just grab a leftover one of the semi-sweet and just shave it on top, and it ends up looking really, really, really nice. So as far as bakeware and like all the things from your kitchen that you're gonna need, you're for sure going to need one of these. I don't even know what it's called. I just know that you use it when you bake pies or cheesecakes, because this comes off and then you just have the bottom. So you're gonna need one of these. I'm sure if you make it in like a regular pan that doesn't come apart, it should be fine. It's just you're probably gonna need to add the parchment just so that you can pull it out, which that brings me to the parchment. So this is for, which I cut it kind of bad, but once you add the butter, you'll see that this is going to stick on like that. And then you'll have one on the other side. And then with the butter, it'll lay flat. But that way, when your pie is ready to be removed from this, you could just pull these from the sides. And then it should pop right out without you having to do this. Because if you do this, it tends to break some of the crust. But I've actually used more this than the parchment. So either one should work for you. Besides this thing, you're really not going to need a whole lot. I mean, I have all my measuring cups. These cute little flower measuring cups. You are going to need a glass, like a glass bowl, because to make the filling, you're going to need to simmer water and then melt the chocolate and the yolks on top of the simmering water. So I use this, but I'll show you a little bit better once we set up the stovetop and oven situation. Besides that, it's really just like all the little cups and bowls that you're gonna need to melt the chocolate and melt the butter and just mix everything. And then I have laid out a parchment paper. I used to work on aluminum, but I don't have any right now. But this works just as fine, if not better. You lay this out because you're gonna need to butter and sugar your phuyllo sheets. And then I always have a towel handy because once you open these, you gotta cover them. If not, they will get hard immediately. So now that you have all the ingredients and all your utensils, let's get started. Okay, so starting with the crust. I forgot to mention earlier, another one of the items you're gonna need, or something similar to this, is one of these butter spreaders. I have two versions. So I also have like this broom looking one. I kind of like to use this one better. I feel like sometimes this one, some of these bristles fall off, so I don't really like to use it that much, but this works perfectly. So I am going to begin by putting some butter on the parchment paper and the pan and making sure it sticks pretty good to the bottom so that it'll be ready for the sheets of phuyllo. I really need to look up what that is, how you pronounce it. The other thing, I don't know if I mentioned, I went ahead and melted the butter. My microwave has like a melt setting, so I just put it in that, but I think it was like a little bit less than a minute and it melted the butter perfectly. So I have that. And then once we have the parchment on, I will show you how I'm going to lay out the sheets of dough. Okay guys, so I wanted to show you very quickly before my phuyllo sheet dries up how I do it. So I grab a little bit of the butter and drizzle it on top. And I think that's how much, like whatever drizzled and whatever's left on the little brush should be enough. So you kind of lightly go over it. You don't want to overdo it with butter because I've noticed when I've added more butter, I'm gonna add a little bit more to this side that didn't get a lot. When you add too much butter, the crust kind of just tastes like butter. Like you don't want it to taste like completely butter. You still want it to taste like crust, you know, like dough. So I that should be more than enough. And then I actually went a little bit over. If you can see, it's all wet. It should look somewhat wet, but not completely wet. And then you want to sprinkle sugar on one side. So I just grab like 2 pinches of sugar, and then you fold the other side over. Oops, sorry. Fold the other side over, and then you add very little butter on this side as well. And the recipe does not require you to, I put too much on this corner, so I'm just going to wipe it off. The recipe doesn't require you to do sugar over the second half, but I'm just going to do it just because I like the way it comes out. And then this is what I have so far. So as you can see, it's starting to get a crust shape. It looks very buttery, but once it goes into the oven, a lot of that's gonna bake. So to put it together, you kind of just have to use, you know, whatever you think works best. Like, start to envision the shape of crust on a pie and just try to mimic that. Because you're gonna go over it maybe twice with another sheet. Like, you're gonna go over it twice. This is the first round, and then I'm gonna do another sheet. Because the recipe, it requires 8 sheets, but I think she uses 8 large sheets, and the ones that I buy aren't that large. They don't cover a huge area. As you can see, that's not even, I mean, maybe it's like a fourth. So you just put it in there, and then you want to leave like an inch at the top, because this crust needs to come out and it's going to start to bend. And it'll look really nice once you take off the pan. So obviously I'm going to go over this area with another sheet, and then that should be fine. So the bottom gets really covered with all the sheets that overlap, but the top is just going to be very flaky. So that's the shape I have so far. Okay, so this is the end of my crust right before it goes into the oven. So I ended up doing 2 layers all around, and the bottom is nice and thick. And I have turned on the oven at 350 degrees. It's right now preheating, and it's gonna go in there for 20 minutes. Okay, so now for the filling. So it starts out by having a bowl over simmering water. So you don't want the water to boil, you just want it to simmer. I just put a small amount in there, and I've been having it on low for the time that I've been prepping these ingredients. And then you put in your 4 large egg yolks, and you add your 1/4 cup of sugar to that, and you add your 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and you begin to whisk it together. You don't want to start to scramble the egg, so you want to be very careful. This is one of the hardest parts, actually. But you just want to make sure that the sugar melts. So once the sugar melts, you can stop whisking it and then add the chocolate. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I get to the point where the sugar is melted. Okay, so I've been whisking the egg, the sugar, and the salt for a while now, and I think I've gotten to the point where I'm going to add the chocolate. So like I said, you just want to make sure that the sugar has melted, and you can check that by kind of just pinching it with your finger and making sure you don't feel any granules. So once that's good, you add the 1/2 cup of the bittersweet chocolate, which the recipe calls for 3.5 ounces, but I just go ahead and do 4 ounces just to make it an easier measurement, and because I love chocolate. And honestly, chocolate is the best part of this whole pie. It kind of like, once you taste it, you'll be like, yeah, I want to add more chocolate. But you don't want to get too crazy and add too much chocolate, because then you're going to go too far away from the original recipe. So I'm just going to keep whisking this and until the chocolate fully melts, and then I will take it off the simmering water and let it cool. Okay, so I have the microwave running. That's the noise you hear in the back. But I just wanted to update you on the crust. I took it out of the oven. It went a little over. It's extra crispy, but it looks pretty good. One side unfortunately collapsed. This never happens to me. Usually it collapses the other way, which is good. But I kind of try to fix it by pushing it back with the spatula and then putting it back in the oven. But this is what it should look like. So it's still pretty hot. You need to let it cool down for about 10 minutes. I'll wait for the microwave. So you need to cool it down for about 10 minutes. And then after it cools down, we're going to put the bottom layer of chocolate. And then also update on the filling. So the chocolate melted pretty well, and I have turned off the heat. So right now it's just cooling, and there's another step to the filling. We're just gonna let it cool first for also 10 minutes. So hopefully while I do this, that'll be ready. Okay, so I decided while I wait for the other things to cool down, I'm going to do the whipping cream. That's going to be part of the filling. So the one I bought comes with 16 ounces, which you're going to use all of it. 8 ounces are going to go in the filling, and then another 8 ounces are going to go on the top, just like whipped cream on any type of pie. So this is 1 cup, 8 ounces. And I'm just going to whip it with my little mixer. It's going to get pretty loud, but I just kind of want to show you what I do in case you've never whipped before. Okay, so this is the end of the whipping cream. You kind of want to stop when it starts to create its own shapes. You don't want to over whip it, because there is such a thing as over whipping. So you kind of just want to stop there. I'm gonna start to spread this on top of the crust, and it's fine if some of your crust breaks or starts to shatter. It's totally normal. There's many layers under there, so it's gonna be fine. And it's better to do this before the chocolate starts to harden, which I think mine already did. Might have hardened too much. Okay, so I melted the chocolate a little bit better, and I'm gonna go in as fast as possible before it starts to harden again. But you really just want to get all at the bottom of the crust. And this actually is one of most people's favorite part because it's something that hardens below the soft filling, and so it's kind of a surprise when people bite into it. It actually ends up being pretty hard. And there was a time where I added a bunch more just because my brother really liked the taste of the hardened chocolate, but it kind of made it it kind of ended up being too hard to cut because this literally hardens like back to solid. And so I just go back to the 4 ounces that I've been using. And make sure you don't mess this up with your bittersweet chocolate. This should be the semi-sweet chocolate because the bittersweet is what's gonna give the filling taste, and then you need your semi-chocolate to be down at the bottom. So I'm gonna finish this up and then put it in the fridge, and then I am going to continue with the filling. Okay, so now for the second part of the filling. At this point, the chocolate in the eggs and the sugar and the salt, that was mixed together over the boiling water. So this isn't just the melted chocolate. This is what we did over the boiling water. It's pretty cooled down. It's been cooling down on top of the stove for the past 10 minutes. And now I'm going to add 1/3 of the whipping cream that we whipped with the mixer. So I'm gonna add 1/3 of the whipping cream. So that's about 1/3. And we're going to just mix it. So make sure you get all the sides and the inside of your little whisk. Okay, so now once that's well mixed, you're going to fold in the rest of the whip. And you gotta make sure that you're folding it in, because I think that's what kind of makes it the consistency of a mousse versus just a regular filling. So I'm going to put about half of it in there and just begin to fold it. And I think mine was still pretty warm, which is why the whipping cream is starting to kind of water down. So make sure your filling is pretty cooled down after you take it off the stovetop and before you add the whipping cream. Okay, so I'm gonna fold the rest. And remember, this was 1 cup of the whipping cream. You're going to use the other cup for the whipping cream that goes on top. And honestly, I think the filling's my favorite part. It just takes, like, the mousse consistency is so delicious to me. At some point, the folding turns into mixing. But you just gotta make sure you don't go in with it too hard. Keep it fluffy. You don't want to overwater it by mixing it too much. And then try to use all your whipping cream as possible. Try not to lose any. So as you can see, there's still various shades of brown in here. You still have like the white from the whipping. Sometimes you get a little bit of the dark chocolate. So you're just gonna keep doing this until it's all the medium brown, basically the color of the mousse. So I'm gonna keep doing this, and then I'm gonna come back once I have a good consistency. Okay, so the very last step is to take the crust with the hardened chocolate out of the fridge. It was in there for about 10 minutes. And you're going to take your final filling. So this was the end of the consistency before I stopped mixing it and folding it onto itself. So the very last step is to add your filling onto the top. And so once you've done that, you're going to put it back in the fridge for at least 4 hours. That'll get the filling to harden just enough, and it should be ready to eat after that. I'm actually gonna leave mine in the fridge for overnight, and I'm just gonna use this tomorrow. So I'll follow up with you guys tomorrow on the final look of this chocolate mousse pie. So I completely forgot to take a picture of it the following day. I took it out of the fridge. I added the rest of the whipping cream and then topped it off with shaved Hershey's chocolate and took it to our Friendsgiving, ate it, and totally forgot I was in the middle of this video. So I pulled this picture from last year's Christmas, and here is where I cut into it so you can see all the layers. You have your crust. You can't really see the hardened chocolate, but it's there. And then you have your filling and the whipping cream and just shavings of chocolate for decoration. So I highly recommend you trying this for the holidays. It's such a crowd pleaser and you're going to get so many compliments. And if you guys actually attempt it, let me know down in the comments. And also, if you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And I will see you on my next video.